Hey everybody, Green Films Official here, and well, here it is, the 2021 movie rankings. Finally. Sorry it's kind of late. I've been preoccupied with schoolwork and other activities, but it's here now, so I hope you enjoy it. We got 15 movies to cover in this video, so strap in and get some snacks. Now, just because Willy's Wonderland is at the bottom of the list, that does not mean I dislike this movie. In fact, I really liked this movie. I thought it was pretty entertaining. A few things I liked include Nicolas Cage as the janitor. I thought he was really funny, although I do wish he spoke even one word. Even though they weren't really intimidating or creepy at all, I do like the animatronic designs. And even though the soundtrack didn't blow my mind or anything, I did like some of the original music made for this movie. Most of the fights between the janitor and the animatronics are quite entertaining. This scene where he fights Gorilla Gus in the bathroom is a particular standout for me. I don't know how many people would agree with me on this, but I quite liked Liv. I thought she added to the film. So, from all the positive things I've said about it, you might be wondering, what's the issue with this movie? What's holding it back? Well, for starters, this film is labeled as a horror comedy, and a lot of the comedy is pretty hit or miss for me. There are some legitimately funny moments, and then there are some other moments that, they're not that funny. I wish the final fight between the janitor and Willy Weasel was a little more climactic, especially considering how much Willy is built up throughout the film. Also, Liv's friends suck, and I wish they weren't in the film. I know that the film wants a body count, but I feel like there were better ways of doing it than just giving Liv the most generic, annoying teen characters in any movie ever. A lot of decisions that the secondary characters make are ludicrous, especially the decisions this lady makes. I get that this movie wants to have like a human antagonist, but like she could have been handled way better cuz my god. Also, some things in this movie happen for literally no reason. Why do the teenagers fall through the roof at some point in the movie? I don't know, and the movie doesn't either. It's not like it's a weak roof or anything, it's a really well built roof, but they just fall through. But I don't think Willy's Wonderland was aiming to make any Oscars. I think it was just trying to be a fun movie where you watch Nicolas Cage beat the ever loving crap out of some evil animatronics. And if that's what you want, well, go see Willy's Wonderland. You'll have a great time. But just don't expect too much more than that. I did enjoy Willy's Wonderland. I thought it was a really fun and enjoyable movie. It was just the movie I had the most issues with. Gunpowder Milkshake is a pretty good and entertaining action film, but it isn't really anything more than that. I'd say that the three best aspects of this film, without a shadow of a doubt, is the action, the world, and the style. There's actually a lot of humorous moments in this film that work, and I don't know why I didn't mention this in my review, but the soundtrack is actually really great in this movie. However, none of the characters in this movie are really that well developed. Like, you get a general idea of who they are, but you don't really get an idea of who they are on the inside, and so it makes it a little harder to care when stuff starts going down in it. Also, I will never get over how wasted the main villain is in this movie. Ralph Ineson is a legitimately great actor, and I wanted to see him as this terrifying, threatening bad guy, but he's barely in the movie. He has one really great scene where he's both sympathetic and terrifying, but that's about it. It's a tad disappointing because if the characters were fleshed out more, this probably would have been one of my favorite movies of the year. But if you do want to see some kick ass action with a lot of style, do check it out because it is a lot of fun in that regard. But just don't expect much else from it. You know, Venom 2018 is not a great movie.
So you will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? rolling down the street like a turd in the wind.
Everything from the cheesy villains, the ludicrous plot, and the line delivery from Tom Hardy when he's playing Eddie Brock.
Where is he?
I don't know. And you know what? Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you anyway.
Seriously, man, this movie's a riot. Yeah, you see what I did there? But I can't help but love it. It's a stupid movie, but it's a stupid movie that's very fun to watch. And when the trailers for Venom Let There Be Carnage started popping up, I expected nothing more than some more dumb fun with Eddie Brock and the terrifying alien goo monster that lives inside of him. Also, I was actually kind of interested to see Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy. I thought that would actually be pretty interesting if done well, and we'll get to Cletus a bit later. Also, can I just say that Carnage's character design was on point in this movie? Look at him, he looks amazing! I have to say that this movie is actually a legitimate improvement over the first one. For starters, it's a little more self-aware as to how ridiculous it is, and so there are a lot more humorous moments. In particular, there's a scene involving Mrs. Chen that got quite a chuckle out of me. I do actually think that this movie could have benefited from an MA15 plus rating, which, for all you American viewers, is essentially the Australian version of R. Much like the first movie, this movie has people getting their heads bitten off with no blood. So yeah, it's just as weird in this movie as it was in the first one. And it also feels kind of weird for a movie that has Cletus Cassidy in it to be so toned back in terms of violence. Although it was able to get away with some pretty grisly stuff, like this scene, for example, is pretty grisly. One thing that I really like about this movie is that Dan Lewis, the doctor from the first movie, actually has something to do. It's not a lot, but it's something. Also, the final fight between Venom and Carnage in this movie is pretty fun. Cletus was okay. I think he could have been better if he was more creepy and menacing, but Woody Harrelson definitely didn't do a bad job. I think he just did a passable job, which is weird considering how great of an actor he is. One issue that I have with this movie is that the first third moves ridiculously fast to the point that it's disorienting and hard to follow at points. There is also a scene in this movie where Carnage hacks into a laptop by sticking his slimy symbiote fingers into the USB port. And when that happened, I couldn't help but laugh in the cinema because of how stupid it was. There's also another scene in this movie that I thought was kind of stupid. Interestingly enough, no one really talks about this, but there's a part during this movie's jailbreak scene where a bunch of police officers are like shooting at Carnage, and Carnage makes a hole in his body that the bullets fly through. And I have to ask, what the hell is happening to Cletus while this is happening? Because surely that can't be good for him, right? Well, I guess, to be fair, I guess they do say that, symbiotes can repair humans in the first Venom movie. But still, Carnage just straight up puts a hole in Cletus here. Venom and Eddie also have the exact same conflict that they had in the first movie, which I thought was stupid. Like, I thought they sorted something out about eating people. Like, they did, right? Hang on, let me look this up real quick.
The deal is you will only ever be allowed to touch, harm, hurt, possibly, very possibly, eat very, very bad people, but never, ever, ever good people. All right?
Fine.
Good.
Yeah, they make a deal that Venom can eat bad people, and now in Venom Let That Be Carnage, it's just no eating people, period? What? Anyways, I've been going on about this movie for a while now, so I'm just gonna give you my verdict. Even though I've been kind of hard on it, I did actually really enjoy Venom Let There Be Carnage, and it is an improvement just as a film over the first one. Sure, it's dumb, but the first movie's dumb too, so, if you really enjoyed the first movie, go watch this one. It's a lot of fun, especially with a friend. I'm gonna be frank with you, there isn't too much to talk about with Free Guy. It's just sort of like a typical fun action film that you can watch with your family, I guess. There are some parts that didn't make much sense, and I found myself questioning the logic of the film, but I don't think this film was trying to be like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece Oscar winner. I think it was just trying to be a bit of fun, and it succeeds at that. There's some good comedy in here, and I liked Ryan Reynolds as a guy. I'm not really someone who's that big of a fan of Ryan Reynolds' acting. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a good actor, but he's not like one of my all-time favorites. But at the same time, I find him very hard to dislike. He's very lovable in this movie. Probably my favorite part of the whole thing was Taika Waititi as the main villain. I just thought he was very entertaining and funny. Up next is Guy Ritchie's action crime thriller Wrath of Man. Now, Jason Statham killed it in this movie. He's easily the best part. Every time he was like interrogating someone, giving a speech, or just messing people up, my eyes were glued to the screen. And that's a good thing, because, you know, H is the main character of the movie. Also, the action scenes are pretty well done, and there's some great choreography. One thing about this movie that isn't too great is Post Malone is in it as a criminal, and it's kind of distracting. It also doesn't help that he's not that great of an actor.
Now listen up, boy. I said throw the money in the flatbed. Try to get clever again, and old boy is getting a face full of
But he's like in one scene, so it's not that big of a deal. The only reason I brought him up is because I thought the fact that he was in this movie at all, let alone as a criminal, was hilarious. Now, Wrath of Man is a revenge tale at heart. H's son was killed, and H wants to find the people that did it. It works relatively well as a revenge story, but one thing I would have appreciated is if H spent more time with his son in the movie. They only really share one scene together, and then the kid's killed. I think if the son was more developed, and there were like just more moments of H and him interacting, and just being like father and son, like some wholesome moments in there maybe, I think I would have been way more invested in H's quest to find the criminals. Speaking of which, there's a scene in this movie that left me wondering who the criminals were. And then the next scene is a flashback revealing who they are. I wish that was handled better. There are some other flaws of this movie as well, but overall, I think this movie is a pretty great time. It's got good action, good story. I like the non-chronological storytelling. And the final scene of this movie is one of the most ruthless, badass, and raw scenes in a movie that I've seen in a while. So yeah, if you like crime action films, definitely check it out. I'm sure you'll like it a lot. Luca is a cute little movie about three friends chilling in an Italian town, basically. It's got some of the most gorgeous animation I've seen in a while. It's like sort of realism combined with cartoony visuals, and it looks very nice. It's got a simple yet very fun story, and the characters are all very likable. I don't think it's up there with some of Pixar's best, but it's definitely very charming and well worth your time. Also, it's got Uncle Ugo in it, and that alone makes it Oscar-worthy. I had a lot of fun with Ghostbusters Afterlife. I liked the setting and how character-focused it was, and all the new characters were pretty cool. Particularly Phoebe, I thought she was really cool. Paul Rudd was surprisingly pretty funny as this lazy-ass science teacher. Finn Wolfhard was alright as well, though he is kind of a dick in this movie. Kind of a coincidence he was wearing a Ghostbusters costume in Season 2 of Stranger Things, Illuminati confirmed. Dead memes aside, you gotta admit, it's a pretty cool coincidence. There's a lot of fun action scenes and iconography for fans of the franchise, and I think if you are a fan of the franchise, you'll enjoy this a lot. I have some gripes with this movie, but considering that almost all of them are spoiler related, I won't get to them in this video. If you consider yourself a Ghostbusters fan, you should definitely check this movie out. I'm sure you'll love it a lot, although you probably already have checked it out, so, you know. Godzilla vs. Kong is not a very hard movie to understand the appeal of. It's the movie where the big lizard fights the big monkey. And the movie pulls this off really, really well. The fights look incredible, my man. Look, I'm a massive Godzilla fan. I've been one since like December 2013. So I was really looking forward to this movie, to the point that I stayed up really late one night just so I could watch the trailer as soon as it dropped. And did it live up to the hype? Well, if you ask me, I think it did. It's an awesome looking movie with great action, and even the story is stupid as hell, but hey, it was entertaining. I like all the characterization that Kong gets in this movie. He's got like all these human-like emotions on his face. In some ways, he's more human than the human antagonists of the film, and I like that little detail a lot. Godzilla was as amazing as ever. He's really ruthless in this film, which is great. Considering the previous MonsterVerse movie, the human plot, or is plots a better word, weren't actually that bad in this movie, but come on. We all know what you're watching this movie for. You're watching this movie for some dope kaiju action, and you get that in spades. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was a breath of fresh air for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. First of all, this movie has really great and likable characters who you really root for as you watch the film. Also, the villain, who has been hinted at since Iron Man 1, was amazing. He doesn't do the things he does just for the sake of it. No, he actually has a really understandable motivation for doing so. The MCU gets a lot of crap for having generic and even downright bad villains, but there are some really good ones, like Ego, Killmonger, Thanos, the dude from Loki who I can't show because his identity is a spoiler for the final episode. They're all great villains. Second of all, the action in this movie is freaking awesome. I think this movie has the best action that the MCU has to offer. It looks absolutely stunning, and it's really well choreographed. It just looks really, really epic. It's less like you're watching a Marvel Cinematic Universe film, and more like you're watching like a really badass kung fu movie with fantasy elements. Some people have criticized that during the climax of this movie, the action just sort of dissolves into typical MCU action. And while yeah, that's true, it doesn't really ruin the rest of the action scenes for me. There was also a surprise comedic relief character who has some of the funniest scenes in this movie, mainly one about Planet of the Apes. While it isn't anything mind-blowing, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was something new for the MCU, and I hope we get more films like it in the future. I grew up with the Daniel Craig era of James Bond films for like my entire life, basically. Casino Royale came out the exact same year I was born. Skyfall was one of the first action movies I ever saw. I watched Spectre in cinemas when that came out, and I played GoldenEye Reloaded on my Xbox 360 to death. So, as you can probably figure out, I was really excited for No Time to Die. And I have to say, that excitement was justified because it is one good-ass movie. It's not a flawless experience or anything, but it is certainly a thrilling, emotional, and ultimately satisfying conclusion to the Daniel Craig saga of James Bond film. From the great locations, the great acting, the great story, the great action, this film has everything you'd want from a good James Bond movie. As someone who's been a fan of these movies for years, I couldn't have asked for a better conclusion. Last Night in Soho is the latest film by the fantastic director Edgar Wright. I think this film is best described as like a mystery horror film with like time travel elements, and I'm not really going to say much more beyond that because I highly encourage you to watch this film yourself if you haven't already. It's got a really great creepy atmosphere and a lot of freaky imagery. Anya Taylor-Joy kills it as this young woman named Sandy. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is a great actress. I haven't seen her do a bad performance in anything I've seen her in. I think Matt Smith was great as Jack, who's one of the main villains of the film. He was just really creepy. I would have liked an explanation as to why the main character can just see the 60s. I know she says she's got a gift, but it's not really explained beyond that. Also, there's a twist in this movie that was fairly predictable, but it didn't really ruin the film for me. Overall, this film was a great experience, and it feels like something unique for Edgar Wright. I hope he makes more films like this in the future. The Suicide Squad is an absolute blast from start to finish. It's got great characters played by great actors and actresses who have great interactions together. I like how this movie has real stakes. I like how this movie does not hold back in terms of its violence. I like how stylish this movie is. I like just about everything about this movie. In my opinion, this is one of the greatest superhero movies in quite a while, and it's easily the best DCEU film. If anything, I just wish we got this movie back in 2016 instead of this piece of crap. Spider-Man No Way Home. Enough said. God, this movie is such a shining example of how to do fan service right. This is easily one of the best Spider-Man movies ever made, second only to Into the Spider-Verse. If all movies filled to the brim with fan service were at least half as good as this movie, Ready Player One would be considered the greatest film ever made. The French Dispatch, or if you want to call it by its full name, The French Dispatch of the Liberty, Kansas Evening Sun, is one of the most unique films I've seen in quite a while. Let me just start off by saying this movie has a fantastic cast, maybe one of the best in any film ever. This movie has Bill Murray in it. It's got Adrian Brody in it. It's got Owen Wilson in it. It's got Jeffrey Wright. It has Léa Seydoux. It's got freaking Willem Dafoe is in this movie, my men. It's got Matthew Amalric. It's got Christoph Waltz, my guy. Elizabeth Moss is in it. Oh, and how could I forget? This movie has the amazing Frances McDormand, a great actress. Seriously, dude, can you get a better cast than this? Anyways, this is an anthology film consisting of 3 stories made for the fictional magazine The French Dispatch. The topics of these stories range from abstract art, politics, and food. What makes this movie so fantastic is not necessarily the stories themselves, but the way the film is made and how the stories are presented to the viewer. This movie is filled with life, color, and energy, and it oozes Wes Anderson's charm. The comedy in this movie is genuinely great, and a lot of moments still make me laugh, even though I've seen the film twice already. A lot of the characters, in particular Moses, were really interesting. My only real issue with this movie is that due to how fast-paced it is, it can be a tad difficult to follow sometimes, but this isn't really that big of a deal. This is a fantastic movie, and I hope we get a lot more like it in the future. At long last, we have reached my favorite film of 2021. If you watched this video I made like almost half a year ago at this point, which is insane, you probably already knew this was coming. That's right, Bo Burnham's Inside is my film of the year. It's funny as hell, emotional as hell, and in a year of great soundtracks, this movie easily has my favorite soundtrack of the year, and Bo achieved this all in one room. When I first watched this film, I knew it was something special and amazing, but I couldn't really put my finger on just what it was. It wasn't just how amazingly well made it is and the frickin' craftsmanship of all the shots and the songs. It's a beautiful dissection of how hard it is to remain hopeful and joyful in such a horrible, nightmarish situation such as the COVID-19 pandemic. It's also a wonderful look into the mental health of Bo Burnham and just how vulnerable the pandemic has made him feel. An example of this vulnerability can be seen in the shot where he's naked towards the end of the film. Some people have made the argument that, oh, Bo's rich and he has a girlfriend. He didn't really suffer that hard. This film is not genuine. And I think people that say that are kind of missing the point. To say that Bo is like showing how he experienced the pandemic is like saying the sky is red. Bo is providing a look at how this pandemic would affect a normal person, someone who isn't rich or wealthy, and it's such a powerful depiction. All Eyes on Me is not only my favorite song in the film, but just my favorite song of 2021 and one of my favorite songs ever. It's a powerful song that says it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to admit defeat sometimes. And my god, it did something to me, man. And the fact that Inside is able to pull that off and be the funniest film of the year, it's so impressive, man. There are so many other amazing things about this movie too, but for the sake of this video's length, I think I'm just gonna leave it there. Bo, in the 0.00000000001% chance that you're watching this video, you've made something amazing, and you should be pretty damn proud of yourself. I will forever remember this masterpiece as something truly amazing and powerful, and something that will continue to inspire me. Whew, we finally made it to the end. That was a big boy, wasn't it? Thank you so much if you made it to the end. I greatly appreciate it. And hey, why not subscribe and click the bell icon if you haven't already? I got a bunch of great videos coming up this year. I'll see you either later this week or next week with a review for the Uncharted movie, so hope to see you there. See you later, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye!